So this is messing with my head now. So if you take a line through the chassis and take that as being front to back of the car as opposed to some kind of weird offset. I've got the bracket now with the aid of a few adjusting devices. Took the twist out of the bracket. I've took the stiffener off at the back. I've clamped in the steering box and the column. And the column lines up, albeit a little bit off there. But to the best of my eye, it looks to be square to the chassis. The problem is I can't get an even line off it. But if you look at it on the bulkhead, it's off at a slight angle. So I'm actually thinking now, maybe I should put the steering wheel on the other end and then take some measurements. I'm not really fussed about it being square to the bulkhead, but it wants to be square to the seat, otherwise you'll have a near side and a far side. But yeah, there's still a little bit of twist on that bracket, I think. And I think that's what's throwing me, or it. Oh, well, there's only 5mm difference, so I'm almost inclined to say, oh, that's close enough. So that side's 5mm closer to there than this side, and that's seated fairly well. Yeah, I think I'll go for call that done. I might just take some measurements off the bulkhead and see how parallel that is to it, because that's pretty straight. So I'm measuring from back of there to there on the flat bottom edge, and there on the flapper. There's a quarter of an inch, it being quarter of an inch larger that end, and that's basically just echoes what I'm seeing. So the steering column is basically square to the chassis, or as near as damn it, and the bulkhead is distorted out, so that middle section's further forward. Should be better streamlining. Anyway, yeah, right, so I'll stick the fixings in. One thing I have got to find out about is that appears to be some sort of rubber bung or whatever, but I don't know whether there's a bearing in there. But it all turns, I mean, there's friction there. I'm just concerned that that's supposed to have something else in it, but there's no instructions or anything with it, so who knows. It's raining again. We've had a good, 8 weeks of it now. Anyway, just finishing off for the evening because I'm fed up with being wet. I've been setting up the steering in so much as putting the bits on and trying to get it to point in the right direction. Done that, but I now need to set everything and tighten up the swivel joints and whatever, ball joints, these track rod ends and the likes. Sunday morning, time to strip the donor car of the bits we need. If you see anything that you think might be of use to you, drop us a line, because other than the engine and the cooling, radiator, intercooler, alternator, I think everything else is available. Yeah. It's had a bit of a chop about by the look of it. But I'm planning on keeping the engine and the gearbox transmission as a spare. The rest of it, yeah, there we go. So it's 200 TDI. No, what's the mileage on it? Questionable mileage.
53,098.
Oh, there you go. Don't know when it was last run.
When it went up back of you?
Yeah, probably onto the trailer. Anyway, right, well, it's just about stripped it now. So we've got the radiator and intercooler out, they were there. Got a bracket which we think we need for the alternator, although I'm bloody sure I've got it, that one. And I don't know what Greg's doing, he's cocking about. He likes it though.
Oil cooler.
Oil cooler, oh, we'll have a bit of oil cooler. I'm looking at the filter, fuel filter on the top. Need that as well, aren't we? Come Come on, Greg, I've done my side.
Because I showed you how to do it.
Yeah, no. What else do we need? Oh well, those pipes. They're going to be fun. We'll take these cooling pipes out. Oh, I've got that on mine.
Yeah.
No, it's still the same bit, mate. We're just doing a video. I ain't got this bit on mine, so I need to check and find out. But anyway, try and unclip it and then relocate this one. Yeah. Greg is now demonstrating where the aforementioned pipe connects to. In there. Thank you. The throttle cable through the back. Complex system of trapdoors and levers onto there. Now that, I think that pump's different on mine, but we'll see. So somehow we've got to get all that lot off. Right, so first of all, we'll undo that and lose all the bits. Vacuum pipe from the vacuum generator round onto the servo. I don't know whether it'll connect, but it's looks similar. There's a pipe come off there. Greg will know what that one was. Yeah. These are the front wheels. Apart from the fact they've been put on inside out to throw it out. Just trying. I've never seen anything like it. Seems to be split rims. Let's see if I can get a close up of that. So, August bank holiday, the second one. Basically been messing around with the steering box connections. So the first job was to get the steering wheel in position where the box is in mid position, and it's 4 turns is full lock to lock. So 2 locks either way, which is odd because I thought it was like 3 3/4. Anyway, when it's in mid position, that drop arm goes on, sits vertically, and then you connect from that to the steering relay. And the steering relay should, when it's in mid position, the lower arm should point forwards, and this one is something like 89 degrees off it. I'm near enough there. I mean, I've measured it with a bloody protractor and it looks about right. Anyway, what I found was, and I couldn't work out, was when I connected it all up, that bar weren't long enough. And I hadn't touched that. I thought, no, that's all set. That's as it came off, shouldn't need to adjust it. Of course, I've moved the box that way. Anyway, I wound it out, but had to get some heat, had to get it all off, had to get some heat on it. So now I've got to repaint the bloody thing. But it does look like we're cooking on gas. So that's me full lock that way. And that's me full lock that way. A couple of things I've found. One is, it says in the book, make sure that that's clear of the brake pipe, but it's not, it's rubbing, and I can't get the brake pipe any lower, so I'm gonna have to see about adjusting that, taking it over somewhere like here, you know, run it down the chassis and then dog leg it over. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, on the arse end of that ball joint, there's a grease nipple that I put on, because there wasn't one, it was just a hole. There's one under there as well, see? And when that goes round, it's clogging that, so I need to find one that's a straight, sort of stubby one, rather than one at, I think it's 90 degrees. But yeah, we're almost there. I've had to jack it up so I could turn the wheels. So, a bit more progress. I think tomorrow I might have a set to and see if I can clean up the stuff to get the alternator fitted, which fits on a bracket off here, sits out here. Anyway, that's another day. Oh, so we're having a look at the alternator. This is basically off the same type of engine, 200 TDI, the bracket and the alternator. Now normally there would be a power steering pump sat here with a dual pulley. One side's driven off this and the other side drives the alternator. You can tell there's a bit of an offset. It's 22mm. So now I have to come up with a cunning plan to shift this over, or make up a bracket for it to fit over here. Bit of head scratching to do. So yeah, it's 22mm inset. So some bright spark came up with the idea using the Series 3 alternator mount. You just have to put a 3-hole spacer behind it, and that's what I'm going to do. These are through, so they can take a 6mm. That was 1/4 inch, but it's about that long, so I've elected to make that a through, and I've just created a flat for the head, and I'll just do it with 6mm all through. I hate mixing up fixings on the same bloody thing, so yeah. So I've ordered the spacer, and we'll see what happens when that turns up. So that's my bracket. Definitely feeling better about the TIG welding now. Alright, I haven't touched the corner, but I don't know. I mean, there's a little inconsistencies, but I'm getting better. I need to check things like the penetration. I think I wanted a higher ampage on that, or longer dwell. Not sure. I'm going to give it a whiz around on the wire wheel, flatten off the weld faces so it'll sit. Job's a good one. Right, so I'm taking a look at the radiator intercooler setup, shoehorning it in. So I've already modified the rad panel. I've took off a load of ducting that went on the series. Now the radiator intercooler out of the Discovery is too wide, the way it's originally set out. What a lot of guys do is they dog leg, so the radiator sits in one plane and then the intercooler sits to the right of it, about an inch and 1/4, inch and a half overlapping. That's one way. Another way is to stick it into the recess in the wing, which is over here. But all of them just leave the whole thing very, very tight, I think. So what I'm proposing to do is basically stick the radiator down in this section here, and then stick the intercooler forward of it, as far forward of it as I can. From everything I've read on the internet, it says that the 200 TDI is not prone to overheating. So there's no viscous coupling and fan set up. They all seem to stick an electric fan on it, which is what I'll do. I'll take you into the shed. So the original setup, you've got the radiator one side and then the intercooler sitting vertically on this side. Problem I've got, as I say, is the width is too wide to stick in that format. So what I'm proposing to do is cut the framework down and then basically take the framework as is, just for the radiator, and I'll have 2 end caps for the intercooler, and I'll just make up a couple of straight straps to stick around the side of it. However, come down here, need to get the orientation right. So if I stick this back here somewhere, that connection's right in the middle of the radiator and in the way. That one I can stick it that way and it's past the end of the radiator, which is basically here. So I'll get away with that one, but it looks like I'm going to have to move that one up here, which should be a nice challenge. So that is the cunning plan. So I'm going to start off by chopping up the framework, get that right, and then build some courage and see what I can do with that. It'd be handy if I had a spare one of these I could weld on first, and if it didn't go well, bottle it and take it off. So that's the lower half of the frame made up. A couple of stainless riv nuts inside. I can't make a top half until I've got that fitting on, for the simple reason I know that it's going to be in the way, so I don't want to have to put a big piece on and then drill a bloody great hole out of it. I'd rather put 2 straps around. So I think the next job is lop that off and glue it on there. Oh, so it starts. So that's the took pipe off, hacksaw job, and it's not that bad. It's pretty straight cut, that. So hopefully I can find a plug to put over that. I needed to take that off first to determine the hole size. So the next job is basically fit it on there, and I think it's going to need the rest of that flange taken off so that I can run it straight down the body. Well, of course it dropped down the inside, why wouldn't it? I'm marginally impressed with myself. I mean, it ain't pretty, and I've got a lot to learn, but it's on. I ain't handling it because it's bloody hot. It's even warm at the other end. So I might just check some of the pinholing. And if I look through the hole, you can see the melty bits inside. Yeah. That went far better than I expected. Even welded it on in the right direction. So the next job's plug welding around that. I'm just letting it cool down a bit at the moment though, because even my gloves were getting a bit hot leaning on it. I've just I welded it and then I've just whizzed it like wire brush over it so I can see what's left. Yeah. What I did find was the so-called white top for aluminium spluttering and splurting all over the shop. Red didn't work. I've ended up on blue electrodes, which are them 2% lanthanated, and they've seemed to work all right. I haven't really bothered swapping electrodes in the past, but just thought I'd have a go. Right, so yeah, set up for plugging that off first next. Well, other than smoke testing it, I'm reasonably happy that's job well done. This area was a bit of a pig. Could not get the aluminium to flow, so I ended up winding up the frequency on the inverter, increasing the cleaning cycle, and yeah, basically got it to blob in. God knows what it's like inside. But yeah, so that saved me 85 quid and cost me about 200 on electricity and sticks. All good stuff. I'm still chasing around this bloody pinholing. And anyway, torch has got so hot the ends fell. The ends dropped a bit, so I'm just letting it all cool down, and then I can work out. I think the gas lens has destroyed itself in there. This might explain some of the variability in what was going on, so I'll put a new setup in. I am struggling with trying to determine the settings on here. So I know the AC balance and the frequency, which is, where the hell's frequency? Frequency there next to it. Trying to get those two correct for this type of aluminium is proving troublesome. I hit a sweet spot early on and got most of it welded, but I got a load of inclusions, and I think that's because I'd got the balance wrong, and now trying to chase those out, I'm either firing bits of tungsten or into it, or yeah, anyway, you can see. Need to get it airtight. So I've basically blew up the tip, my stubby tip on the end of the gum. So that got a mesh lens in it for the gas. So I've stuck a standard setup on it, and I've just managed to get a load of stuff around there, and I've had me son fuffing in that end with my hand clamped over it, and it's free of pinholes, thankfully. So I'll give it a good clean up now. I'm not going to touch any of that because I don't want to find any more holes. And we'll see how things go. Well, I'm not going to lie, but that turned into a bit of a trauma. Long story short, trying to get it so it's mounted and held just between the 4 rubber points. So I needed clearance all the way around, and these side pieces, by the time I'd cut them off the main frame, were just too short. So I had to make a piece to go over the top. I started off with it running down the inside, and then realised I hadn't got enough room for either a riv nut or even a stud welded on the inside of that face to pick up, same as those. So I've ended up having to weld a stud on the inside of the vertical piece and then put a nut down the outside. And then just trying to get everything to line up, and then realise, oh yeah, how am I going to build it up? So what started out as holes ended up as being slots. So they're just slots to work in. Anyway, it's in, it's held. I've checked the airflow, and I can't find any leaks coming out of here. That's as hard as I or my son can puff down that end. So I'm working on the basis that's all right. I've even had to bend that just to give me clearance around the weld. Yeah, bit of a faff, but I can't really see a point in, other once it's painted and fitted in. I don't really think it's going to come out unless this thing springs a leak. Anyways, so next problem is got to repair the stud on the base there. Should be just a case of welding a piece on, and then tickle it all up, take off sharp edges, and I'm going to send them away and get them powder coated, because I've got enough to get on with without adding black to my colour range of painting. But yeah, that's took all flipping day cocking about with this. I tried it with straps and it just didn't look right. So then I made that piece up and cut a big hole, and then I had to make the hole bigger to get it over. It's just a palaver. But it's right now. Well, I figured it'd be easier taking off the rad panel and mounting the intercooler in it, and then putting everything back on. Hardest bit's going to be connecting up these bottom nuts and bolts, but there's good access from the front. You know, you've just got to loop them in. Anyway, so where I'm at, we've got a triangulated bracket there off the side to pick up the 2 studs that have mounted that frame onto. So other than cutting that bracket back a little bit, let's take a bit of weight out of it. And then these fabricated bracket hanging here. I've just been all mindful of however I do it, it's got to be able to come out without taking the rad panel out. So those 2 studs, those 2 bolts there, and then the 3 fixings there, and the whole thing will twist out. At least that's the plan. I'll be cursing myself if it don't. I did have it mounted up there, but then realised that thing's in the bloody way. So I had to go and temporarily stick that in position, which is the bonnet latch. Yeah. Anyway, the only thing left is I've got to decide whether I'm going to put some kind of support underneath it. I mean, it's on now. It's not going anywhere. I might stick a couple of webs across just to stiffen these 2 up there. That one's not a problem. But that whole corner, the design department were obviously having a day off, because it would have been much better to do that as one long stretch, and then just put a T-piece down. Anyway, I'm not remaking it all. None of it's seen, and it's just got to be functional. Right. Right, well that's temporarily on. You can tell it's not quite right because of the bloody angle it's sat at, but the wings will square it up as well. I've put riv nuts along the bottom just because it makes a hell of a lot easier. So they just need some probably Loctite or something to hold them all in place. So what I've got to do now is measure up for brackets coming off here, and these two marks are for the hole centres for the pins on the bottom of the radiator to locate into, and basically it will sit forward of the cross member. Don't believe that's took nearly all bleeding day. So I've just plonked the radiator in just there, and it's got a pair of tabs here, and that sits quite nice. I mean, it's a little bit tight on the thread on the end of that water pump, but that's where the viscous coupling used to be for driving the original fan, which obviously we're not using. But if I did that, if I set it like that, I could formalise a bracket for those pins to sit in. It gives me room through there for any pipes. That's well clear. It's quite nicely situated, that is. I just need to make some kind of bracket for that to sit in, and then a piece of cowling down off the top here to pick up those. And then we got the connections here, oil and water, top and bottom. I think that's the expansion pipe. That got a bit exciting.